Hello, I'm Jake from BitGo, and I'm joined today by Pedro Gomes of WalletConnect here to have a discussion with me about the background of WalletConnect and where WalletConnect is going. Thank you for joining me, Pedro. You want to give a quick intro on yourself? And
Yeah, well, thank you for joining me in this beautiful setting. This is probably the fanciest podcast ever. Yeah, WalletConnect, what can I say? It's been around for a while, and it's always started as this very community projects to really build a technology that connects wallets to apps. But it definitely has grown to be so much bigger now. It's like this decentralized ecosystem of apps, wallets, node operators, and developers that are just building better user experience.
so define wallet for me, because I think you define wallet quite a bit differently than a lot of the rest of the crypto industry defines wallet.
Yeah, because people think about their wallets as their addresses on chain, but that actually isn't very accurate. It would be the same as you defining the account number in your bank account as your bank, but your bank is more than just a number. In fact, your bank does so much that, you would actually have multiple account numbers. And wallets are no different than that. You actually have multiple addresses and multiple accounts, and your wallet is managing all of that complexity for you. So even if you take one address on chain that will be represented in multiple blockchains, you already have multiple accounts. And the wallet has the power to not only control that very securely, but also reduce that complexity for the user.
Totally. How do you view the role of identity as it relates to wallets? Because using bank accounts as a reference point, that identifies an account, but it somewhat identifies a user as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the challenge, right? Because we built a financial system that is also meant to be used as a form of identity. And that comes with a lot of benefits because now you can actually control the whole internet with this digital identity. But this digital identity is also all of your financial assets, all of your financial transactions, and you kind of lose the privacy that you took for granted before. But this also means that now you can actually correlate all of your financial activity to build a reputation. So more important than the identity, which the identity could be a pseudonymous username on socials or your legal name and your passport. It doesn't really matter because what matters is what you associate with it. And people have been building profiles around their NFTs, their transaction history. And this is actually kind of building out your reputation online, and that's what's more powerful about wallets.
Do you believe ENS plays a role in WalletConnect in the future?
I mean, whether it's CNS or Solana name system, it really doesn't matter because WalletConnect is truly chain agnostic, and we've touched on so many blockchains and we build infrastructure for all of them. ENS is a great example of a digital identity on chain. But I think there will be plenty out there that are going to do either better at some things or worse. But they're all going to rely on the same idea that it's aggregating the context of what makes you you.
Absolutely. So let's wind it way back. Talk to me about how you founded WalletConnect.
Yeah. Well, to kick off, the reason I got into crypto is because I was already in fintech. So I already had this interest into financial platforms.
And where were you before?
I was living in London, so I was part of this neo bank boom where every kid in the block was building their own bank. I wasn't the founder myself, but I was part of a very early startup. I was one of the first 10 employees of this startup that was building a bank. And I was really excited because I felt as a very young 20-year-old, I was going to revolutionize banking. But what happened was neobanks weren't even real banks. They were banks on top of another bank. And then the big bank kind of just decided the rules. And we were just playing around with this app.
Right.
And that didn't feel great.
Still a problem for a lot of these
It is.
challenger banking apps or
They're
neobanks in the US.
not really challenging anyone. It's a very nice interface for the big bank. And who benefits? The big bank.
Yeah.
Because the bank just gather more customers without any cost for them.
Yeah. Even worse, you often see where they're actually smaller banks or
Yeah.
a small bank in a great fintech application.
Yeah.
Then when you actually have problems, you have to face this small bank.
Yes.
Anyways, getting a little.
No, it's true. This is a real problem. Because there is gatekeeping in the traditional finance. And then you have like these bureaucrats who actually went through the process of getting the banking license, they win. And then whoever didn't have the patience to go through the process of getting banking license built great user experiences, but get no benefit out of it. And that's what got me into crypto. Like, so I was like super obsessed around 2017. And I would go to my office in London. I would like talk to people about crypto, and they'd be like, dude, you should just work on it. They would just like joke about it. But I actually took it seriously. I kind of like actually got a job and was building a wallet in a very early time. Like in 2017, Ethereum had like what, 5 wallets? So building a new wallet was like, that was a massive opportunity. But there was a big risk because MetaMask had like this incredible dominance. It was like 90% plus.
Yeah.
It was basically Ethereum. It's kind of similar to Phantom today in Solana, but like back in the day, the infrastructure was way worse. And then WalletConnect came as a realization that we need to fix that same problem that allows other wallets to compete more fairly.
Totally. So then what was the genesis step where you went from working at a wallet company to realizing the potential of WalletConnect?
So we were actually in an offsite. So our team just gathered together. We were actually in Medellin, Colombia. Like we were like just the 5 of us. We were building the wallet. Everyone was focused on different things. And then one of the things that bothered me the most is like, as I'm building these wallets, I was focused on the mobile part. And the mobile part was even the worst. Like it was literally the one that would gain the most users, that had the worst tooling, the worst experience, and pretty much was dead on arrival.
Yeah.
And I was trying to solve that problem. And I was actually using WhatsApp at the time. And I was connecting my WhatsApp from my phone to my desktop. And I scanned the QR code. And I was like, wait, if WhatsApp can do it, there's literally no reason that we cannot do it. Like there's no reason that if WhatsApp solved this problem, Ethereum wallets can't do it.
Right.
So I just reverse engineered what they did. I literally just built a prototype at the offsite. It actually was exactly 7 years ago. Like it's actually quite a good
To
time.
the day?
No, it was on the 16th of March. So
Okay.
like we're very close.
Yeah.
And then I built a prototype, and 10 days later we tweeted about it, and everyone went nuts because it was like, this is exactly what we wanted.
What a good signal, right?
Yeah.
You throw it out there and immediately you get awesome
The
feedback.
video was just like, people were like, oh my God, we finally have an alternative. Like we were just kind of so anchored to MetaMask because apps weren't even building for Ethereum. Like realistically, yeah, there were Ethereum apps, but there were MetaMask apps that whatever MetaMask say, they had to do, and with WalletConnect, it provided an alternative. So that allowed me to then focus on building infrastructure for wallets. And then the Ethereum Foundation liked it so much, they were like, hey, we'll just kind of fund you so you do this full time. So I said goodbye to the wallet team, and I said like, well, I have to now help not just one wallet team, but every
All of them.
wallet team in Ethereum.
What happened with that wallet project that you were with?
Actually, they kind of split into 2 wallets, and then one of the wallets went and the other one disappeared, but that's another story. Yeah.
So do you feel like your time with them taught you valuable information about how you can communicate with these other wallet projects? Because when you start, ultimately what WalletConnect was early was a lot of BD work, right?
Yeah. I mean, that time was really precious because that was my first time in Ethereum. I met a lot of people while working at that wallet. But what's really great about working in a blockchain, whether that's Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin, like you are really working with the community. Yes, you pick a team. Yes, your company is your team, but we're all working together. And while I was working one wallet, I actually was talking to every other wallet. So the moment I left the wallet team to build this infrastructure for wallets, I already knew everyone else that I needed to interact, because we just hang out at conferences and we just talked about problems. And conferences before were way different. They were almost like developer conferences.
I remember. Yeah. How did you find, so you're talking about how this is being built in the open, right? This is open source initially.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of community input and feedback. How did you deal with that when you were trying to, pursue your vision, not the vision of what somebody else thinks you should be building?
Well, WalletConnect was small, so like there was less scrutiny, like less opinions. I think that it was around 2 years later, around 2020, when I would remember like doing something to the code and I would get feedback within a week. In the beginning, like it was pretty much in the dark. Like, so it was actually quite easy. And I think too many times people are too stressed out about the open source part of it, but I don't want to be a bummer. Nobody's looking. Like until you actually find product market fit, people are actually not even noticing that you're building in open source.
Yeah.
It was only like 2 years later that I would almost have to have this anxiety of like, oh, if I do something wrong or too experimental, I'm going to get criticism about it. But then you get used to it as well. Like, it's just part of it.
And at what point did you feel like WalletConnect really started to gain traction and start maturing?
It was 2020 was a big pivotal moment. Like in 2019, it had this massive adoption because we had a few wallets and then MetaMask added it, which was a big validating point because WalletConnect was designed to actually counter MetaMask, but then MetaMask also released a mobile app and then they actually added WalletConnect. Then Trust Wallet also added it, which was like the second biggest at the time. And then Safe also added it. And that actually puts me in the map for especially the whales, like all of the big holders of tokens who never actually use like many self-custodial wallets. With the WalletConnect solution, they now access all of these DGen apps, and that was very attractive to them. And in 2020, then we had like this whole explosion of stable coins and yields and compounds. And that's when I started seeing the numbers to just skyrocket.
How much how much of that growth was based off actual protocol changes that helped enable WalletConnect versus just, the natural growth of need?
Like WalletConnect actually had like two versions. And this is like something that like most people don't know about, but like people who have observed the history, like there was like actually WalletConnect 1 and WalletConnect 2. And then we killed WalletConnect 1 because it was just really bad. But if it wasn't for the naivety of building WalletConnect 1, the imperfect solution that kicked off this whole mission, I would have never gotten the traction that I needed to build WalletConnect 2. And this is really hard for builders to understand that like the value of building the worst solution early, it completely outshines any perfect solution you build 2 or 3 years from now. So what actually got the success to WalletConnect was actually traveling to every conference. Like I was just young and single and I was just like literally be on a backpack. Every weekend I was somewhere and I was talking to a team, I was meeting them, and I did that for like 2 years straight. And before COVID hit, I already had the traction. So that was really helpful.
What was your strategy at these conferences? Because it can be, I mean, me personally, I can get very easily distracted. We have all these events, all of these meetings, and we talked about this a little bit even earlier about it's hard to schedule and make it valuable.
Like I was no better than that. Like I was what, 22, 23. Like I got distracted a lot. But I kind of also went a little bit with the flow and start to like understand like who are the people who are actually building and who are people, the tourists.
Yeah.
And that was actually the easiest part to identify because the tourists like to talk and the builders like to build. And once you start identifying that, you start like not hanging out so much with tourists, and then you realize like the tourists left, like they all were around, but they're not here anymore. And you just have to identify who are really serious and long term. Um, I guess it's a little bit of a gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a people skill that you have to develop,
Totally.
how you actually read people and you know who you have to interact with.
Right. And you're seeing the same people over and over. You're like, okay, maybe I'd go to a different type of event, see a different group of people.
Exactly.
Like I just recently was in Consensus for Hong Kong, and I went to an event that I've seen at many conferences before. And finally I was like, all right, I'll go. I got invited to their lunch. I went, and it's like this entire different cabal of people.
Yes.
It's so interesting because they all mostly form cliques and hang out with each other. But then you get entered into this new group and you make new connections and you're like, I didn't even know people were building this. It's fascinating, but it doesn't leave those little subsets. So I guess it's a sign of growth for crypto.
And even if you leave a different blockchain ecosystem, during my history at WalletConnect, I lived some time in Berlin and I got like super close to the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yep.
And that completely allowed me to redesign my thinking of what WalletConnect needed to be, because I didn't even realize how much I was like sitting in the Ethereum echo chamber. And then I hang out with the Cosmos people and I'm like, oh, I'm not building the right thing for them.
Yeah.
So this whole time, it wasn't a waste, but I can't cater to their needs.
Right.
And this kind of opened my mind to then build for other ecosystems. And that first it was Cosmos, then it was Polkadot, then it was Solana. And then all of a sudden I had this completely different vision of WalletConnect for everyone, not just Ethereum. And this is one of the big shifts from WalletConnect 1 to WalletConnect 2, where instead of building a WalletConnect version for each one of the ecosystems, there's just one WalletConnect for everyone.
Right. Yeah. That had to have been difficult.
Yeah.
Like interoperability is not easy.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about interoperability and app ability, where you have all these different types of dApps on different chains, and you need to work through all of them.
Yeah.
And so at this point, it's DeFi summer. Everybody's using WalletConnect for everything. You're seeing this growth. At what point did you decide that you wanted to take the next step and decentralize WalletConnect and actually move forward with this
In
rebrand?
2020, we were definitely not thinking about decentralization. Like the growth was completely outpacing my skills, and I actually was getting a little bit stressed out because WalletConnect was growing out of proportion. And that's when the moment that I decided that like this whole open source kumbaya community building isn't like scaling really well.
Yeah.
First, like I've told everyone to run WalletConnect nodes in the beginning. Nobody actually did because there was zero incentives at the beginning. So I was running nodes for everyone, and the nodes were blowing up with like too much loads, too much traffic.
How many nodes are you running on your own?
It was like about 7 at the time. Yeah. But they were like super badly designed. So like you actually could have survived with 3 very well designed servers at the time, but there was actually 7 and they were very badly managed. So at that time, I actually seeked venture funding. And
I was about to say, what are costs?
the company, right? Because all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, people are doing donations and grants, but this is not sustainable. And then a whole other era started for WalletConnect.
What was that fundraising process like? I gotta imagine you're walking in there, you have all of these users, you're like,
Yeah,
I'm blowing up. I need some funding.
I have to say that like I don't know what it's like to fundraise on the traditional way, right? Because I delayed the process for 3 years. You know, I could have fundraised like 3 years earlier, but I kind of just like was avoiding it, and then it got to a point where I just had to.
And then it was easy.
And then it was like
Users.
I was asking them, I was like, "Do you have numbers?" I'm like, "Of course I do have numbers. It's been running for 3 years." And then I was like, "Oh shit, like,
Yeah.
this is quite decent. You can just like do it, you know?"
And how did you bootstrap yourself up to that point?
It was a mixture, right? So, you know, sometimes funds would be low and I had to bootstrap, but sometimes I had to do some consulting gigs on the side. Sometimes I had to I got grants from foundations like Polkadot, Cosmos, Ethereum. I got a grant from Consensus. I was one of the biggest donations in the Gitcoin community. I think I was ranked number 3 or 4 in Gitcoin because people just donated so much to WalletConnect, which was really nice.
Yeah, very interesting. And then so when you actually did close that first round of funding, what was your strategy now that you had some cash in the bank?
It was relief, honestly. Like I just imagine like I went from like the amount of funding that I got in 3 years was pretty much 5 times more in just one transaction. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Like to see like basically here's funding and we can do another one in next year if you want. And I was like, really? This is amazing.
You're looking around, you're
I
like,
could have done this a long time
Yeah.
ago. Like building out the team, like that was a whole other experience. Like that was actually the big transition from being a builder to being a CEO, like where you actually have to manage people, you have to set expectations, you have to drive the company and everything. And I think the first year was actually the easiest one because it was pretty much greenfield.
How big was your team at that time, first year in?
The first year was 10 people, like,
Okay.
including myself. Yeah. So that was the founding team, and that was like a big experience. And then the next year we built so much tooling. Like first we scaled the servers to, you know, take as many users as we could.
And a load. Yeah.
The load was completely a solved problem
Yeah.
right away because we had better people doing that than myself. Then we actually had people register. So we actually had like an actual CRM that we can actually message people and be like, hey, your app is blowing up. Like we need to do something about it. And then we actually started like doing upgrades way more frequently. Something that would take like a whole year then became like a monthly recurring thing. And that also affected a lot of the security, the performance, and you know, we actually had like an actual company running.
What was your error handling strategy prior to that? Because it had to have been
It was basically, if you did not message me, I would not know that something was blowing up. So I just had to be very active on Discord, Telegram, wherever the people were. It was very different, right? Because I had to search for the errors rather than the errors come to me. I actually had to ask people, is there any errors? And they were like, here's a full list of stuff that happened in the last week.
Were you ever like, why didn't you bring that to me? Like,
Yeah,
why?
yeah.
Why do I have to ask you?
Look, relationship, it's relationship building.
Yeah.
And then over time, it became more like a partnership and people have like a better communication.
So how do you view this? Is a pretty important piece of this is just UX and DX in general in crypto is, and UX maybe more so than DX is just not very good.
Yeah.
Right. And historically it's not been very good. I think WalletConnect is super well positioned and already has made a big difference in that user experience. So how do you view that moving forward? And how do you view the impact that you've had on the user experience of the crypto space?
Like, the funny thing is that like what WalletConnect has built was actually developer experience. Like, and it's really interesting because it is a network that provides infrastructure that impacts users directly. But the only reason we can do that is because we empowered the developers of apps and wallets to build better user experience.
Via SDK.
Exactly. So the SDKs were the tool that actually delivered the user experience because we never actually built apps ourselves, never built wallets ourselves. Sure, we have testing apps and testing wallets internally, but we always had to empower them. So we have to listen to a lot of feedback and we have to try to solve as many problems for the developers so they can be more relaxed about actually building what they actually want. So that is the actual impact. And this actually was solved through a lot of standardization because you start hearing about the same problem over and over again, and you realize everyone has the same problem. But because they're competitors, whether it's the apps or the wallets, they're competing with each other. They're not sharing each other's problems. They're trying to solve it all in-house. And WalletConnect is the only party that they are friends with, right? We're the only shared friend that they
You
have.
guys are like the group therapist.
Exactly. So I'm acting almost like this therapist or mediator between them and saying, guys, you're literally complaining about the same thing over and over again. Let's just solve this together. And we had like many sessions, workshops, and even recently, like last year, we organized hackathons for them. So we bring them into a room and be like, we're going to solve this right now. Like, we're just going to work
Sit down.
Yeah, we're going to sit down and solve this. Yeah.
Do you think that's still possible today? Because I feel like there's so much conflict between different chains,
If
and different
anything,
founders.
If anything, is just getting better, like because WalletConnect has growing bigger, so there's like more reasons for people to build on it. But there's also more reasons to be aligned because you could argue that like if you try to compete with WalletConnect, let's say in 2019, which was only 1 year old, it was much easier because there was like so little network effects. So you could just I can replicate WalletConnect with like 1 million users. You can't do that now. Like it's 40 million. That's way harder than 1 million users.
Yeah.
And it's growing. Like it was like 35 million like 3 months ago. So it's like growing really fast and it's not going to stop. Like eventually it's going to be 100 million. So it's much easier to just like collaborate, work together. And we actually established what we call the UX console, where we actually put all of these apps, SDKs, and wallets together in one room on a monthly basis, and we're going to solve problems together.
That's so cool. How do you come to terms with the fact that you're growing at that rate? Like those are crazy numbers to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's much easier now, right? Like before, it was like a solo founder experience where I had to be wearing many hats. Now we have like so many people, like just internally, like between like the Rion team and the foundation, it's like 50 people. Plus we have like so many SDKs like Privy, Dynamic, and Third Web. They're all contributing to this. They also have a lot of talented people working on this. We have like 60 node operators that also are participating in this. Like, yes, they're big numbers, but we're also a much bigger movement as a whole.
Totally agree. So going back to our timeline, so you've raised capital, you're hiring a team, you're a CEO now, things are changing, you guys are growing. At what point do you get to the decision that you're going to bifurcate the company to the foundation and what ultimately became the Reown side?
Yeah.
And then how did you come to that decision?
So the thing that happens when you centralize is that you also are a big target. Like we've been a target for multiple reasons. Like we got our domain shut down 3 times in 7 years. Like that's quite substantial because, being a shut down at the domain level, it's quite hard to revert. And then we got targeted by DDoS attacks like almost on a monthly basis, and we had to protect against those. And even we had like a little drama situation around the whole sanctions thing when the whole war broke down in Ukraine, and it kind of just caused like more and more pain. So we had like two problems. One is like, are we going to be able to scale as a startup to be this global network that supports literally every wallet connection in the world? That seems a little bit hard unless we raise like $500 million to do it. And at the same time, we're just putting a big target on our back. We're just being attacked left
Just
and
a
right.
bigger target. Yeah.
Exactly. From a legal perspective, from a technical perspective, we're just being targeted in every direction. We need help. And how do we get help? We just onboard more people. We started onboarding node operators to join us like earlier last year. And then we actually had the foundation as the middle ground, right? Because one of the interesting things about Reon is that Reon is both the core contributor to the WalletConnect network, but is also developing their own SDK, which is actually the number one SDK in Ethereum, which is called AppKit. But they also are essentially competing with Privy, Dynamic, and ThirdWeb, who are also contributing to the WalletConnect network. So what is the middle ground here? Like, I've started this mission to unite people. So I chose to actually move to the WalletConnect Foundation so I can keep doing that and become an ambassador for standards and wallets and user experience. And that's where we actually get to work with all of these SDKs and other operators together. And the Reon team can continue to deliver very fast at a much higher pace than the foundation can do, but more focus on the commercial level.
So I was smiling listening to the beginning of that, of why do you need to decentralize? And it's just like beautiful. Like there's actually a direct reason, and it's completely aligned with the ethos of the crypto space, right?
And it's because it's screaming in your face.
Right.
Like, we're getting targeted with all of these problems. Like, you know what? Decentralizing would actually solve it.
Yeah. How cool is it that you can actually solve that problem that way?
Exactly.
Right? And 10 years ago, that would have been just build your company bigger and bigger, raise more money.
Exactly. Become a multinational, like subsidiaries, and it's more like paperwork than actual solving a problem.
Right. Nuts. So back to this choice for Reon. You're building up the Reon team. So you yourself were the only person that did not move over to Reon, correct? At least originally?
Yeah, so I'm the only person that moved from Reon to the foundation.
To the foundation.
The whole foundation, all the hires are new hires.
Yeah. Okay. And so how was that decision-making process? Because that's like, even at the base level where you decided that, okay, I'm going to step aside and I'm going to hire a CEO. That's a pretty mature decision to make as a founder. And I think a lot of founders don't know how to make that decision.
I mean, it was very hard, to be honest. Like, I really didn't want to let go because, it was kind of like my baby, right? I was building this for so many years, but I also had to be very real. Like, the best part of my work was building an actual infrastructure that's united all of these developers and connecting with them at a much closer level, essentially being like the DevRel for WalletConnect. Like, the actual managing the company is something that obviously wasn't like my best suit of skills, And yes, when we were like 10 people, it was easy. But then when we reached like 40 plus, it got hard. And, as a first time CEO, it wasn't an easy job. And I had a much better time actually connecting with developers externally, going into conferences, building these workshops, building standards. All of these things, I had done a much better job. And at the foundation, I would have the opportunity to do that full time.
I think you've got great instincts, Pedro, because there's another one where you see it a lot in crypto where people get to that point and they don't step aside, and you see them not really managing their business very well. I mean, they're sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars and they don't really know how to grow and how to move. And they're trying to do too much. They're getting too tied up in the minutia of running the company rather than that growth and that vision that you clearly have. So,
well, I think you just mature. It's a long time. Like, people underestimate what 7 years look like. Like, there have been different versions of Pedro, and I've grown probably more than even WalletConnect itself,
I'm sure. Yeah. So you decide you're going to decentralize. So at what point does the decision to launch a protocol and launch a token come into play?
Well, when you actually decentralize and you have the foundation and the separation of the two companies, you onboard all of these node operators, like, there's a missing piece here, right? Because I've tried to actually get people to run nodes before, like very early on in the history of WalletConnect. And one of the missing pieces was incentives. You know, without the actual token, you actually do not have the incentives. But to build a token without the actual traction is also harder, right? Because you have to build a token on the idea that they might have traction. So building the token now is much easier than in 2017 or 2018, because now I'm building a token and saying, hey, all of this traffic that we're now powering through all of these nodes is going to actually drive incentives for the node operators and the wallets. So now we can only go higher from here. You know, it's not actually going from 0 to 1, it's going from 1 to 100.
Do you think you would have made a decision to have a token sooner had maybe you started in 2018, 2017? So imagine that ICO craze started in 2020 and you had an opportunity to raise capital that way rather than from traditional VC sources. Do you think that's something you would have pursued?
No, because I actually thought that there was an opportunity to maybe build WalletConnect without a token. And we really exhausted every other option. You know, it really got to a point where we realized that, guys, we're over engineering this. Like, you know, what could actually just like build an actual financial incentive between multiple parties that do not like share one parent company? A token. It was just like the perfect solution to the problem. Like every other alternative, like you said, it's like, now let's build the multinational with like multiple subsidiaries. That does not sound very efficient. Oh, let's build a foundation where every company like has a subscription model to like just develop it, not scalable. What are we like? You know, like we're not very resourceful companies. We're still startups. Like we're still small companies. Like the token actually provides a cheaper and more efficient way to actually incentivize everyone.
Yeah, and so well aligned with who your actual customers are too.
Exactly.
That's beautiful
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you think where do you see WalletConnect going now that you're in this foundation seat and Rion's doing all the labs type efforts on that side? What is your focus right now, and what do you think the focus of WalletConnect is just moving forward?
So there's one big question that's obviously always left with all of these tokens, which is like, how do you go from a token that actually has like traction to actually have that traction capture value through fees? That's a big question. And not many tokens have succeeded at doing that. And that has to have the collaboration of everyone involved. Like from the ones who are actually going to pay the fees to the ones who are actually going to get a commission out of this, and even the people who are actually staking to actually earn rewards from this. This is going to require a lot of research, a lot of conversations, and a lot of like collaboration in the actual design. Because if we get, let's say, 20% of the community to actually participate in this design, then it's like an amazing project. Because building this like internally, just with a few heads just bumping into each other and thinking maybe this is a good idea, is not going to work.
Right.
And the second thing is like, the whole ecosystem of WalletConnect is more than just a WalletConnect network. Like all of these standards that we actually have been building together, they still are needed. And there's still multiple problems that need to be solved. And having the WalletConnect network as the anchor for them to all like come into the room and talk about it is also important. So we're not only just solving a better WalletConnect network as an infrastructure, but also a better WalletConnect community where, you know, people come to the WalletConnect ecosystem to build together. You know, yes, I'm a wallet and I compete with you and I'm going to try to eat your market share, but we have this one problem to solve. And for the name of WalletConnect, let's try to solve it together.
What do you think that one problem is?
Right now, I like to put it very simply that, you know, I did a couple presentations that have this mantra of like less clicks is more. And it's pretty much the biggest problem. Like people complain about this
UX,
the whole time.
right?
It's UX, but the best way to put it is like there's too many steps, too many clicks. There's just too much friction to actually do anything on chain. And we need to build every possible way to abstract them to reduce the number of clicks.
What is that called? I'm blanking. I'm going to just check my notes.
Smart sessions?
Yeah, smart sessions, right? Like,
yeah, smart sessions is what we believe is the best solution right now. And this actually came out of one of the WalletConnect hackathons where we actually had multiple wallets and SDK teams in the same room coming up with a solution. And the solution was smart sessions. And now it has gained some traction, but it's still
Take
like
me through what smart sessions are, because whoever's listening may not.
exactly. So the smart session is an alternative to what we call like normal connections. When you connect your wallet, what you're basically establishing is a session that allows an app to be aware of your wallet, and you expose your address on chain, and it says that you can use certain chains. So let's say that you're Alice who are connecting to OpenSea and you want to buy NFTs on Polygon and Arbitrum. And now you expose your address, and now every time you want to do something, OpenSea is going to ask you to sign something. And this is adding more clicks. Not only already had to go to your wallet to approve that you want to connect to OpenSea, but now every time you want to do something like change the profile, it asks you to sign something.
And you're like, oh shit, my
Right.
ledger timed out.
And now you actually have to like switch ETH from wrapped ETH,
Yeah.
another action. Then you actually have to list your NFT, another action. Then you actually have to buy NFT, another action. And this requires so much friction. With a smart session, that is all removed because we already know what OpenSea is going to do. Like they have a very good understanding of what their app does. They can actually write a good security spec that says, these are the exact actions that this application is going to take on this particular address on the blockchain. And we're going to drive essentially a spec of what it should do and what it shouldn't do. And then that's actually going to be described as what we call a policy engine. And in that policy engine, we're going to give it to the wallet, and then the wallet and the WalletConnect network is essentially, once again, a mediator between the two, where it says this app is going to require these policies. And then once you actually connect, you're essentially allowing them to sign transactions on your behalf within these policies.
So that can be like a approval prompt. Some modal pops up.
Exactly.
Here's the flow of functions that you can expect. Or you can allow OpenSea to do.
It might be even more human readable. Like when you actually connect, let's say, Google to an application, it already asks you for some of these things.
Yes.
It says, I want to access your email, and maybe I want to add events to your calendar, and maybe I want to create Google Docs,
Right.
you know? These
Single sign-on, OAuth.
exactly, of single sign-on and OAuth already exist for the Web2 world. They don't exist for Web3. Yes, we created identity. Yes, we created a payment rails, but we didn't create like a policy engine that allows you to understand what an app can do and what do you allow it to do.
How tough is that to standardize permissions?
Oh.
Because apps vary a lot, right?
It is really hard. And that's one of the biggest problems that, yes, conceptually speaking, we have all agreed on what we actually want to build. How we actually approach the level of granularity for a user to say what can be done and what cannot be done is still a big topic of discussion and requires a lot of iteration. And that's why it's really important to keep all of these competitors as partners, because they really need to build together. Otherwise, there will be a policy engine for one wallet and another wallet, and they all do it slightly different. And these little differences break the interoperability of the blockchain provider.
So how much is that communicating with the chains versus the dApps? Because dApps vary a lot too.
Yeah, but the dApp differentiation is the worst one, right? The blockchain one is the easiest one. Like you can easily create some sort of policy engine that like is compatible across like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, because at the end of the day, the fundamentals of a blockchain do not change.
Right. There are only so many functions in the contract.
Exactly.
Right.
But the contracts that these applications build, they're incredibly different, right?
Yeah.
And they also have to find some sort of standardization. And we're starting to find some common patterns. Like one of the policies that's the most common is called the spending policy, which allows you to essentially make any balance changes within your wallets within a certain threshold. So this means that like to a certain degree, this app is able to make valuable transactions on your behalf. But if there's anything that goes above a certain amount, then it actually gets automatically rejected.
It's interesting because we at BitGo, we have our own policy engine, very similar, but it's all native to BitGo. I mean, it's just basically a bunch of different spending limits or different approval processes, or you can set thresholds or trading limits. And so like same thing, but like even that, it's such a powerful thing.
It is.
So like trying to take what is ultimately really powerful and bringing that into something that's modular.
No, actually, custodians are a great example, because custodians like BitGo, you guys already built these policy engines within a very closed environments that it only works within your ecosystem.
Yeah.
So you can even onboard other partners and you can slowly add new functionality to your own policy engine.
Right.
And what we're trying to do, which is quite a bold movement, is to actually make a completely generalized policy engine that would be automatically compatible with any app, any wallet, and any chain.
Yeah. Super interesting. What excites you most about what you guys are building right now? And I caveat here, a side note is I've often heard you refer to as what you guys are building as like the Visa of Web3, right? So help talk me through that.
Like the best thing about it is that one, I get to work with every app and wallet and chain, and there's no winners. Like there's no winners, there's no losers. Like we all benefit from WalletConnect being better because every other application or wallet out there is going to have a better experience. But what's actually even better is that because of like this good traction that is gathered, we can actually build an incentive system because blockchains themselves do not actually have a way for every time an application grows, the wallet also grows. And this created a little bit of a weird situation where wallets are onboarding people to apps and they're getting no benefit out of that.
Right.
And this is where the Visa analogy comes in really nicely because Visa essentially brought an incentive mechanism for banks to bring more customers to merchants through the credit cards.
Yep.
And they actually had this like fee being split, which they call the interchange fee. And basically, every time a merchant makes a transaction, they split the fee within the Visa network and it goes to the banks. And then the banks are incentivized to bring more users. The WalletConnect network can do the same thing for wallets, where apps are paying a fee to the WalletConnect network, the node operators are also getting paid, and then the wallets also get incentivized to bring more users. So yes, it started as a mechanism to build a better user experience, but it actually can be a catalyst to bring more users on chain and actually bring even profitable ways for wallets to actually build.
Right. It's a dual network effect.
Yes.
Or a paid network effect, I guess,
Yeah.
to some degree. So help me understand how the protocol fits into the existing infrastructure of WalletConnect.
Yeah, so the current way that it actually changed is that previously, whenever you actually had a node, you actually have to like, you just run some software and it connects to the network and it starts relaying transactions. But now the way it actually works is actually it splits the traffic. So again, it's a very technical problem that it's solving, like splitting or load balancing
Yep.
the traffic across all the nodes. But it also is optimizing that every node will receive more tokens if they provide the fastest experience possible. So it's very performance driven. And the way we're able to do this is that compared to traditional staking models that were built in other protocols, you don't actually stake directly with the node operator. You actually stake into a generalized staking pool that all node operators share that pool, and then they actually receive rewards based on their performance score.
What performance metrics are you guys looking at?
Right now, it's quite basic. We basically just look at the uptime. How often are you online, and how fast are you at responding at requests?
Okay.
So the performance on the response requests and the uptime of your node being always available calculates your performance score, and you then sum up all the performance score for like every week, and you get your weekly rewards.
How many nodes are on your network now?
Right now, it's 60 node operators.
60?
16.
16. So how do you qualify them, and like how do you reach out and establish these relationships?
I mean, it has varied a lot. We had like some very eager, like smaller teams that are just really professional and they focus on the performance. So we had some of those actually joining as node operators. We had some more strategic ones that are either like wallets or application partners who are already very big contributors into the network. And they basically are essentially participating as a node operator as a goodwill of like making sure this is sustainable. And then we have other ones who are more in the distribution level. They have like big customer bases, maybe they're like a custodian or a staking partner, and they can bring something to the table, in terms of like bringing the network to a bigger audience.
Right. How are the tokenomics associated with the staking piece?
So right now we have basically defined a budget of 17.5% on the white paper that actually goes into the rewards. So we're essentially emulating the idea of fees. It's basically, if there were fees today, what would be the potential rewards that these participants would receive? And that's what's actually being distributed. Eventually, when fees come into the system, then that actually would replenish what we call the rewards vault. So the rewards vault would be replenished by the amount of fees. So the more fees there are into the system, the bigger are the rewards. But right now, we're basically mimicking that system or what it would look like. And we expect fees to take over within the next 3 to 5 years.
And those fees from the incentivized, uh, the app incentivization layer to this, how does that play into the protocol, and when do you expect that to be live with everything else?
Well, that's one of the big challenges about, building something decentralized, right? Because if we did this like centralized, we could have had a very clear and deterministic date that I could give you.
Yeah.
I think with the collaboration of all of our partners and people who are members of the UX console, it's going to take a little bit longer than we might expect.
Yeah.
I think optimistically, I would like to see a first iteration of this in 2026.
No, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And like then that's where you get from, let's call it 50 million to 150 million.
That's what I think so.
The growth's going to be crazy there.
Yeah.
So I recently saw that you were a Forbes 30 under 30, which I thought was really cool, just to see anybody on there. I mean, there are a couple of crypto people on there, but you see a friendly face. So what was that process like, and what does it mean to you?
Actually, I don't know. It was kind of cool, like, because someone actually, the way it works is like someone actually referred me. So a previous Forbes 30 under 30 referred me as a candidate for that, and I got the email and everything, and I was really excited because I think it's a good milestone in my career to like be.
It's really up
for 30 under 30, and I was really happy about it. And it also, I was able to kind of like promote a little bit as a Portuguese person that was in the Forbes 30 under 30.
Yeah.
So it was also quite a good news for like my local community. Yeah, and honestly, it's quite an interesting group of people, and I got to meet all of them, and it's really great to be part of it.
Yeah. Did you do like an event with everyone else, or like?
Well, yeah, they had a little event and everything. Yeah.
So once you knew you were picked, or how did they tell you that you were selected?
Yeah, so they message you and they say, hey, you've been shortlisted for the Forbes 30 and 30, and then there's a little bit of like a vetting process, obviously, and then you go through that, and then they say eventually we'll announce it. And then I think it was about like a couple of weeks before they like let me know, and then I was like really excited, and then I shared it, and we shared it on the WalletConnect channel as well. And then then I got to meet the other people who were also part of that cohort. No, it was a really nice milestone. Actually, the funniest part of like the reaction wasn't actually receiving people congratulations. Were like, wait, you're under 30? And it really made me think that I need to take care of my health.
Yeah, I think they're more impressed than they were questioning the look of your age. But anyways, I think super well deserved. WalletConnect is such a pivotal pillar to all that is crypto, and congratulations. And I'm super excited to see what's going to come. And thank you so much for joining us.
No, and thanks for BitGo to become a partner in the WalletConnect network.
Thank you guys so much for listening in, and thank you, Pedro, so much for joining us. And so we're really excited to see how this grows, and very excited to see how WalletConnect grows as well. Thank you, guys.